Top stories. The Labour Union feels slighted by the government and the Chamber of Commerce in talks as it relates to workers and vaccination. Are we ready for the 2021 hurricane season? We hear from disaster management officials. And we present the final team roster of the senior men's national football team ahead of Friday's World Cup qualifier against Guyana to be held at the Warner Park. Welcome to this edition of the SK Newsline Newscast. I'm Andre Huey. The St. Kitts and Nevis Trades and Labour Union feels slighted by the government and the Chamber of Commerce in talks as it relates to workers and vaccination. More in this report. A call has been made by the first Vice President of the St. Kitts and Nevis Trades and Labour Union, Larry Vaughan, for a greater dialogue on COVID-19 vaccination and how this interfaces with workers. Mr. Vaughan, in an interview with SK Newsline, says the union has not been invited on matters pertaining to COVID-19 and vaccination, and is calling on the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the government to include the union in these discussions.
And so, whatever is the decision at this point of the Chamber, whatever they are articulating at this point, it lacks the genuine desire for national social dialogue until it speaks to workers through their representation. And so whatever else is being done needs to be reconsidered, and that we can come to a position that is of a better normal. We cannot return to a situation where the worker is always dictated to by his employer and his employer's organization, or the state as an employer as well, just because they have a position that seeks to bring them direct benefits, but riding on the back of the worker.
Mr. Vaughan reiterated the union's position on vaccination, where, while they support vaccination against COVID-19, the union is vehemently against mandatory vaccination.
Where there is language that one is to take the vaccination or else, one is either unable to work, or will be not scheduled for work, or will not be allowed into the premises for work, the union considers this to be a breach of the workers' rights. We believe that there are enough standards at this point, or non-pharmaceutical protocols at this point, in terms of hand sanitization, wearing masks, social distancing, teleworking operations, that can allow workers the opportunity to function until they are until they are at a level where they have greater understanding and appreciation for the vaccine.
The Chamber of Industry and Commerce has been on record encouraging its members to educate its staff on the importance of vaccination. President of the Chamber of Commerce, Giselle Matthews, made that clarion call in a recent NEOC briefing.
Using language like selfish or irresponsible, I don't really take any sort of, if I use that word, I can't say that I'm sorry. I can't stand here and say I'm sorry. I think we need to be responsible, okay? I think what we're seeing today is a possible community outbreak on our hands that this country cannot afford. Neither can our health authorities or the health services afford this outbreak. People have been struggling for over a year and some. Many businesses are on the verge of closing if they're in the tourism and hotel industry. And the power really lies in the hands of those who still need to get vaccinated.
Some business establishments have strongly urged staff to be vaccinated, and while not overtly threatening dismissal if persons refuse to vaccinate, some consider the language strong and intimidating. Mr. Vaughan suggested that there should be a discourse that encourages a more amicable solution where vaccination is concerned.
We would like that the other social partners, our employers, along with the state, that we can sit at a table and discuss what would be the best for St. Kitts and Nevis to make sure that our workers are not at a point where they are at a psychological disadvantage because of language being put out on saying that these are either mandatory or insisting or have to do X, Y, or Z. And so we believe that there is some recourse, there is some course of action that can allow for us to reach to maximum immunization through a systematic approach that would allow workers to be better educated and that there are less or no fears in the minds of the workers as we move towards that maximum immunization.
Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. How ready is St. Kitts and Nevis for the 2021 Atlantic hurricane season? SK Newsline's Glenn Bart tells us more in this report from an interview with representatives of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA.
While fewer storms are predicted this year, the forecast is still for an above-average hurricane season, and St. Kitts and Nevis residents must prepare for possible impact in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking on a program called Road to National Resilience, National Disaster Coordinator for NEMA, Mr. Abdia Samuel, is concerned about how people can shelter safely, either with friends or family or alternatively by way of public hurricane shelters. Samuel outlines some of the challenges the hurricane season presents, as it only takes one hurricane hit to create a major crisis in a time of a pandemic.
We normally promote a body system approach to sheltering. It's very difficult doing that under this context. Second challenge you have, Mr. William, is that the government identifies shelters. Their capacity will have to be reduced significantly because of the pandemic. Now, the third thing we have to look at is placing different persons in these shelters, not knowing who may be a carrier of the virus that can transmit this virus. And it's an open space. You don't have an individual space. And that in itself is a recipe for challenge. Case in point, La Soufre in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that would have erupted. Persons were placed in persons were placed in shelters. And these persons were placed in shelters. We have had clusters of cases come out of shelters. And this include security forces who have been there to help monitor and manage these shelters. So it poses a serious challenge in the context of that.
Meanwhile, Mr. Elmer Burke, the Senior Meteorological Officer at SCASPER, said less storms are predicted for this year compared to 2020, but he said the number of storms expected is still above the average.
We are expecting fewer storms. However, at the same time, we still anticipated a above-average hurricane season for this year. The forecast at the moment is calling for 17 storms, 8 of which may develop into hurricanes. And out of these 8, we are anticipating about 4 of them will develop into major hurricanes. And when we say major hurricanes, we're talking about categories 3, 4, and 5. So we recognize that, yes, it's lower than what we received last year in terms of number of storms. However, it is still above the climatological average.
While the Atlantic hurricane season begins in June, most of the major hurricanes and increased frequency occurs in September, as most storms form off the West African coast and travel across the Atlantic towards the Caribbean. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
When we come back, Education Minister speaks about how the Ministry of Education is adjusting to the impact of COVID-19. Elliott's Funeral Parlor is the first licensed embalmer in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We have a friendly and professional staff. At Elliott's Funeral Parlor, we offer a wide range of packages from $6,500, homegoing service at chapel, locally made caskets, tailoring of outfit for deceased of your choice, wake, overnight with slideshow, funeral, death announcement, obituary, booklets, family pin-ons, memorial books, preparation of funeral arrangements, wreath, fresh and artificial. For further information, call 469-3298, 664-2007, or 660-0186. Elliott's Funeral Parlor in Gingerland, Nevis. Dedicated to those we serve.
I need some veggies for dinner. Let me just check the amount of sodium in this can. Oh no, this is too much. Let me try our next option. They did say it's healthy to consume less salt. This is much better. I am salt smart.
Football is back, and the St. Kitts and Nevis Football Association will be bringing you live football on its website, www.sknfa.com, with Premier League Live. Without fans in the stadium due to COVID-19 protocols, you can now watch every single Premier League match this season on www.sknfa.com and click on Live TV. Games are shown live on every match day with halftime and post-game shows. It's Premier League Live. Commentary, analysis, action. Never miss a game.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Auto Plus Car Wash, located on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Bring your car to Auto Plus Car Wash to remove water stains, wiper marks. Get your doors, roof panel cleaned, seat floor mats, buffing, headlights, and engine wash. You get quality service at the best price at Auto Plus Car Wash. They really care for your car. Call 765-5140 or visit them on the College Street Gut, Bastyr, St. Kitts. Auto Plus Car Wash, where the service is number one. Welcome back. How is the education system coping with the impact of COVID-19? The Education Minister attempts to provide some information on this in a national address recently. More in this report. Minister of Education Janelle Powell said work is being done to ensure proper assessment of students as the nation grapples with COVID-19 and the impact it has had on the education system. Speaking in a national address recently, the minister also assured that the necessary support will be provided by the ministry for online learning during the initial 2-week closure of schools.
We are aware that there are concerns with respect to assessment. At the national level, decisions regarding assessment are being reviewed in light of our changing national COVID-19 status. My leadership team, in close collaboration with school leaders, are working to chart the most appropriate course for our system.
The minister made a plea to everyone to continue to uphold the necessary COVID-19 safety guidelines.
Although on-site instruction has been suspended in schools for a period of 2 weeks in the first instance, our students are being afforded the opportunity to continue to learn at home. The Ministry of Education, understanding the likely reality of school closure due to the national COVID-19 mitigation efforts, took the necessary steps to ensure that educational support will continue despite school closure. Schools have been in communication with parents and students and are ensuring that parents are informed and students meaningfully engaged. At this juncture, let me thank our principals and teachers for working to ensure that during this period of school closure, students are not without educational material to support continued education in the home.
He reminded the public that external exams will begin on June 28th as a decision was made by the Caribbean Examinations Council to postpone exams by 2 weeks. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline. Water authorities are calling on the public to conserve water, which is very scarce on St. Kitts. SK Newsline's Glenn Bart tells us more.
While the country is dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, Manager Engineer Cromwell Williams of the St. Kitts Water Services Department alerted the country of a current emergency, which he indicated points to the need to consider seriously water desalination. While it is an expensive process compared to normal water collection, Williams said the current drought has highlighted the impact of climate variability taking place in the Eastern Caribbean. He indicated that the Caribbean Climate Outlook Forum of the Caribbean Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology recommended drought warnings for St. Kitts and Nevis as well as for Antigua and Barbuda. Williams informed that between January to April 2021, just 6 inches of rain were experienced compared to the same period in 2020 when there were 12 inches. He indicated that the normal for the period is 15 inches. Importantly, he said, in May, only 0.6 inches of rain fell compared to a normal of 5 inches. Significantly, however, Williams stated that it was time to give serious consideration to desalination.
Desalination, which is the conversion of seawater into drinking water, is a last resort, as it is at least twice as expensive as our normal sources of water, seeing that it uses quite a bit of electricity, and we know that electricity is not cheap. Unfortunately, over the past few years, we did experience some setbacks in our well drilling program, but we are back on track. We have recently signed a contract with BEAD for rehabilitation of a well in Shadwell, as well as the drilling of new wells starting in the Keon area. This dry season has opened our eyes to climate variability, and hence we can no longer delay our turning to desalination as a means to augment our public water supply.
Meanwhile, Williams said a recent contract signed with BEAD will rehabilitate a well at Shadwell and the drilling of new wells starting in Keon to augment the 13 wells that produce about 5 million gallons of water per day. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
St. Kitts and Nevis will form part of the RSS peacekeeping mission to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. SK Newsline's Glenn Bart tells us more.
Members of the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force were told to make a meaningful contribution to the recovery efforts in St. Vincent, where they will join other members of the Regional Security Service, RSS. Just before departure on the weekend on the RSS aircraft at the Robert Llewellyn Batcher International Airport, Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris greeted the team, wished them a productive engagement, and cautioned them to be careful about COVID-19.
Let this be a good show of regional solidarity to the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, from the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let your conduct and behavior be such that you will enhance the respect and regard of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the people and government of St. Kitts and Nevis. So may God bless you. Keep safe. You're where we are in the COVID-19 environment. COVID-19 does not discriminate. Doesn't matter whether you're tall or black, short, in school, out of school, and elderly. COVID-19 will attack you.
In a show of solidarity, Commissioner of Police Hilroy Brandy presented a check to be handed over to the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force and the Police Credit Union raised and collected several thousands of dollars for the donation.
I want you to hand over this check, this manager's check of $25,000 from the Police Force and the Police Credit Union to Commissioner John to show our crimes of the disaster, to contribute to his men and women of the organization of the Royal St. Vincent and Police Force.
The team was also addressed at the airport by Major Coyote Sutton of the St. Kitts Nevis Defense Force. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
When we come back, regional news.
The SKN Newsline website now offers you more news. Log on to www.sknnewsline.com for local, regional, and international news. You can also watch the latest newscast and keep abreast with news in sports, all from sknnewsline.com. That's www.sknnewsline.com. News at your fingertips.
You know, it's me, Mr. HE, and I'm here with one message: roll up to roll out. We all know how difficult things have been during this COVID-19 pandemic. While we continue to wash our hands, wear a face mask, and practice social distancing, how about we take it one step further and get vaccinated? Call the Nevis Health Center to find out if you are eligible to be vaccinated. Or you can contact the Ministry of Health at any one of these numbers down below. Don't be discouraged by the negativity. We all have a role to play in protecting this federation. So, St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out.
Stay abreast with news on St. Martin with SMN News. Visit www.smn-news.com for up-to-date news, scoops, opinions, and hard-hitting facts. SMN News, we tell it like it is. Visit our website www.smn-news.com.
It's the new and improved SKN Newsline Android mobile app. With the SKN Newsline app, you can watch your news reports, the SKN Newsline newscast, sports, special features, and so much more. You can also send us a WhatsApp or call us directly. Go in the Google Play Store, search SKN Newsline, and download the app today. The SKN Newsline mobile app. News on the go.
Junior, can I get popcorn, please? Don't tell Shane, Dev. Want some to please? I can get some salt. More, please. Boy, take a popcorn from Junie.
Welcome back. Now turn our attentions to a look at news across the region. The police in the Bahamas are addressing concerns expressed by that country's health minister on the low vaccination rate among police officers. More from Eyewitness News.
The Commissioner of Police tonight clarifying what has been reported by the Minister of Health as low vaccinations within a number of the armed forces. This as government continues with its efforts to get the country to herd immunity. Arjanelle Longley reports.
While Minister of Health Renard Wells in a recent Parliament contribution raised concerns with low vaccinations within the armed forces, Royal Bahamas Police Force Commissioner Paul Roll says it's not a direct reflection of what's going on the police force.
The force is large. It is a misconception because people have to understand that the police is not only Nassau. In terms of the numbers, the police have more of all the uniformed branches, that took the vaccine.
While he admitted that there are still some officers on the fence about the vaccine, he said one of the biggest issues for the uniform branch is that when officers register for vaccines, the bookings sometimes fall during the timeline that officers are on duty.
So you have 4 persons on duty, you have 3 prisoners in the station. How do you do that? Do you just walk out of the station, leave the prisoners in and go because you go into Loyola Hall to stand in the line? The first discussion that I had with the health professionals was that they would come to us and set up so that we were able to get the vaccination register online. My thing was I would have let the medics, assist with that, and then it gave us a little more control to have officers come in.
The commissioner was appearing on Royal Bahamas Police Force talk show, Cop Talk. He also used the time to encourage residents and his fellow officers to take the vaccine. While it is not mandatory at this time, he says a time will come where persons may be forced.
When the more persons, I believe, are vaccinated,
right,
and vaccination becomes a requirement, you want to go into the grocery store and they say, you want to wake, people are making them. You said you need to have, if you're vaccinated, we'll employ you. Okay? We make this thing seem complicated, that this is just a beginning. When I joined Royal Bahamas Police Force, they asked for my vaccination card.
According to the Ministry of Health statistics, more than 50,000 persons have been vaccinated. The police force, the defense force, customs, and immigration all fall under the uniform branches. At last report, only 15% had received at least their first dose. Janelle Longley, Eyewitness News.
The parents of a 7-week-old baby who died at the Bustamante Hospital for Children in Kingston, Jamaica, a week ago believe her death was due to the unavailability of ventilators.
A distraught young couple is seeking answers from the Bustamante Hospital for Children in Kingston after losing their 7-week-old daughter on May 20. According to the mother, Trishana Watson, she gave birth at the Black River Hospital in St. Elizabeth on March 31. However, she says due to early complications, her baby had to be transferred to the Bustamante Hospital on April 29 for treatment.
When Tizzy was born, Tizzy wasn't able to feed, so each time she feed, the fluid keeps coming back up. It keeps coming back up.
Trishana Watson says her baby underwent a successful surgery on May 7. But she claims that things suddenly took a deadly turn.
Even though she wasn't feeding, she's fat. So this is Tizzy when I left her. And when I went there back on the 17th of May, this is my baby.
She says to her surprise, the baby was also receiving oxygen and was being treated for a serious urinary tract infection. Then came the need for a ventilator.
Normally, they come to the Bustamante Hospital so the babies can get ventilator. If not, they normally call UAR Cornwall region. So he did his calls and he said that University of the West Indies doesn't have any ventilator available.
Trishana says, according to the doctor, the UTI contributed to the baby developing sepsis and dying. However, she believes a ventilator could have saved her baby's life.
If the baby had that ventilator, the baby would still be here, because they said that if the baby don't get the ventilator, the baby would not make it. If the baby had an infection, the infection could be treated.
The hospital's CEO, Camille Wallen-Panton, says she is aware of the situation and empathizes with the parents. She adds that investigations have commenced into the matter. Aladdin Love for CVM Live.
Many Southeast Asian nations are now being forced to impose new restrictions as infections surge to record levels. Al Jazeera reports.
No international flights are being allowed to land for a week in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi. The announcement on Tuesday follows a similar ban by Ho Chi Minh City a few days ago. Infections in Vietnam remained low for most of last year, but have risen since late April. Taiwan, once lauded for its success in containing the virus, saw clusters emerge once it relaxed its pandemic restrictions.
When you're very successful, you are not forced to improve.
Only when you fear, then are you forced to improve. We were too successful in the past year.
In Malaysia, a 2-week lockdown beginning on Tuesday means only essential services and businesses are allowed to operate. Health officials here say the surge in cases is caused by more infectious variants and people breaching pandemic restrictions to celebrate the Muslim festival of Eid last month. Malaysia has recorded nearly 2,800 deaths from COVID-19. 40% of those were in May alone. Vaccination rates in Asia remain low. On average, only 6% of the population has received at least one vaccine dose. Experts say containment of the virus must therefore be prioritized for now.
We have to be vigilant. We have to be doing good surveillance. We have to, as communities, we have to come together and accept movement restriction, border controls, the use of personal protective equipment, masks, etc., and practicing good hygiene. We will be stuck with this until we get high coverage of vaccines, and that's the only way out.
Many countries are now ramping up their vaccination campaigns. Japan is hoping to vaccinate 1/3 of its population before it hosts the Summer Olympics in July. And Vietnam says it's seeking to buy vaccine production technology while also pushing to acquire more doses. Florence Louis, Al Jazeera, Kuala Lumpur.
Dr. Abhishek Grimal is the Asia-Pacific Emergency Health Coordinator for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He says the presence of new variants could be contributing to the rise in cases.
These countries have done very well during the first wave of the COVID-19. But since we are already more than a year into this pandemic, many people are a bit sick and tired of following all the rules and regulation and wants to go back to the normal life. On top of that, these countries also are seeing now the variants of concern, which is much more transmissible and infectious than the previous or the original strains of SARS-CoV-2, lowering our guard against the virus, plus the presence of variants of concerns can be attributed as two major causes of spike of cases in Southeast Asia. So more studies need to be done to really see whether or not the new variant, which appear to be the combination of two variants of concern. Already one is B.1.1.7 that was first detected in UK, and the B.1.617 which was first detected in India. It appears it is a combination of that, and some of the local experts in Vietnam believes it is highly transmissible than any of these strains, and it is really an alarming sign, not only for Vietnam but also for the other states around or other countries around Vietnam, as if this is true, then we are looking for a major rise of COVID-19 in the region. But stating that we need to have more assessment to understand the impact of the concern on the total case rise.
Tulsa, Oklahoma took time out to remember the Tulsa race massacre, where what is known as Black Wall Street was destroyed. More from NBC News.
Tulsa, Oklahoma, pausing to remember the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. On this day, back in 1921, a white mob descended on a thriving black neighborhood called Greenwood, destroying a community and killing hundreds of people. Today, a prayer wall dedication at the only church to survive that horrific day. NBC News correspondent Tremaine Lee has more from Tulsa.
Allison, for a fourth day, folks in this community have gathered here on historic Greenwood Avenue, which, as we've talked about, a 12-mile stretch that used to have hundreds of black businesses that have now shrunk to about less than 24. But behind me is the Vernon AME Church, one of the few black-owned buildings to remain standing, at least partially, from the massacre. And today, a caucus from Congress, the Reverend Jesse Jackson and others, came here to dedicate a prayer wall, the wall on the far side of this building, where so many people in this community took refuge during the onslaught. But also activists and descendants of victims and survivors are pushing not just for the memories of their loved ones to be lifted, but also for more equity and justice and fairness. Now, Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester kind of teed up what this moment means and perhaps what folks should be pushing for. Let's take a listen.
I feel this ground, but I also see a highway that went through a city. So we're here to remember, to mourn, to rebuild equitably, and for people, we've heard about repairing the breach. The word repair is connected to reparations. And so that's why H.R. 40 is in Congress and we must pass it.
Allison, even though the blood was spilled here in this community 100 years ago, the pangs of what happened are still being felt today. And folks say, even though, again, today is a time for mourning and remembrance, they also want to push forward. And many are raising the call for reparations.
St. Kitts and Nevis will be hosting the World Cup qualifier match against Guyana at the Warner Park Football Stadium this Friday at 4 p.m. All the necessary preparations have and are still being made to accommodate hosting this match, which will see the strictest application of COVID-19 measures prior to, during, and after the match. Both the St. Kitts and Nevis senior men's national team and the Guyana national team are in a secure bubble at their hotels and during designated times for training leading up to match day. Preparations for the Sugar Boys have gone well so far, according to coach of the senior men's national team, Leo Nieva.
Coming very, very well, you know. I'm very satisfied with our players, with the commitment, especially this week, this time. It's very good chance for us to increase ourselves, you know. They coming, I think so, you know. We are capable to win at the home against Guyana. We have very good performance. I think so. I believe so. I believe so far.
Coach Nieva was very positive about his players, especially the local-based ones who compete in the SKNFA Premier League.
We keep the balance between the local players and the overseas-based players. We keep the same way like before, the last final squad. Yesterday, we called the final squad, and it's not so easy, you know, because some of them. They are not being active, you know, but we try call the players with more games, you know, more match fitness like that. So that's why we keep the balance between the local and the overseas players, and also we keep the same way like before. We maintain the rotation for the under 23 players, you know. We keep some quotas. Like 3 quotas for the under 23 players. 3. So I think it's good.
Coach Nieva is confident that St. Kitts and Nevis will get a positive result from Friday's match, which would all but assure the Sugar Boys would progress to the next round of the World Cup qualifiers.
The national team or the team that's going to play overseas or at home with the draw advantage is very dangerous. You know, it's very dangerous. That's why just keep your focus, keeps the winning mentality, you know, and just like that, moving forward to win the 2 games. I believe so. We believe about that, no?
The squad for Friday's match are goalkeepers Julani Liburd, Zarkis Smith, and Clifford Samuel. Centre-backs, Raheem Francis, Thrizen Lida, Petrus Williams, and Lois Maynard. Full-backs, Ordell Fleming, Gerard Williams, Malik Roberts, and Xavier French. And defensive midfielders, Johannes Mitchum, Theo Wharton, Raheem Somersall, and Andre Burley. Offensive midfielders, Omari Sterling James, Vince Roy Nelson, Harry Panayutu, Tikwani Williams, Romaine Sawyers, Kalanchi Clark. And forwards, Keith Roy Freeman, Rowan Liburd, and Tahir Hanley. Fans will not be allowed in the stadium, but the SKNFA will be broadcasting the match live on its Facebook page beginning at 4 p.m. You have been watching the SKN Newsline Newscast. I'm Andre Huey. From all of us here at SKN Newsline and Channel 95, thank you for watching.